A very good afternoon to all. I am Dr. Neha Gupta from Global Association of Physiotherapy. The webinar is sponsored by Global Association Physiotherapy, Delhi Women's Wing, organizing on webinar that is cerebral palsy and its management. Date is 31st October 2021 and day is Sunday. Timing 12 p.m. onwards. So today's webinar speaker is Dr. Anita, the executive member of Delhi Women's Wing, and the organizing committee, Dr. Sita, National President, Women Wing, spokesperson, Dr. Akansha, National Vice President, Delhi Women Wings, Dr. Pooja Vora, that is President, Dr. Ritika, Vice President, Dr. Bhavna, she is General Secretary, Dr. Shanali Sagar, the Joint Secretary, me myself also, Dr. Neha Gupta, Secretary, and the speaker, Dr. Anita Sharma, Executive Member. So I request Dr. Anita to start this webinar. If anyone want to ask the question or any query, please do it after the webinar. Or you can just send the chat or message in the chat box. So we will do it after the webinar. I request Dr. Anita to start the webinar. Dr. Anita, I'm audible.
Dr. Neha, am I audible to everyone?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, can you start now with the webinar?
Yeah.
Okay. A very good afternoon to everyone. I would request everyone to please mute yourself and your video during webinar. So today, let me introduce you about myself first. I would request everyone to please put your mic and videos on off mode. Okay, so myself, Dr. Anita Sharma, I'm empathy in neurology. Today, I'm going to discuss about a neurological condition very commonly seen neurological condition in children, that is cerebral palsy. We are going to discuss its management in a brief and about the rehab team professional associated in the management of cerebral palsy. I would like to wait for 5 minutes more so that more participants can join. Then we could start with the webinar. Is that okay, Dr. Neha?
Yeah, it's fine. We can wait for 5 minutes more.
Okay. Please, everyone, if you have any query, put that in the chat box. We will discuss it later in the end of the webinar, or you can use the group link. Further, we can talk to about your queries after the webinar, or you can use the chat box. So I think we have almost maximum participants, so we can start now. So what is cerebral palsy? Cerebral palsy, it is a commonly used term for a group of conditions characterized by motor dysfunction due to non-progressive brain damage to the developing brain. As the definition say, it is a non-progressive brain damage. That means the disease doesn't have a progressive cause of cause. It will not be worsened by the time. And let's move to the other slide. The term cerebral refers to the brain. Palsy refers to the loss of impairment of motor function. Basically, what is cerebral palsy? Cerebral palsy, neurological damage disorder. It affects person ability to move and maintain balance and postures. Here I'm going to share you with few facts about cerebral palsy. Children with cerebral palsy have varying degree of difficulties depending upon the type and severity of their condition, as well as the area of the body affected. We will discuss in detail about the different types of cerebral palsy and its classification. Each type of cerebral palsy vary in their severity, symptoms, and treatment. And accordingly, it is the most common motor disability seen in childhood. And the most important risk factor associated are the preterm babies and low birth weight babies are more prone to develop cerebral palsy. The damage to the brain is permanent and cannot be cured, but the earlier we start the intervention, the more improvement can be seen in the children. And that is why in nowadays scenario, early intervention is the prime focus treatment for treating children with cerebral palsy. And what are the main two features? These are the spasticity and muscular weakness are the main features seen in cerebral palsy. I would request everyone to please off your videos and mic. These two prime features, spasticity and muscular weakness, worsen the disability condition of the child with time. Now we are going to discuss about the epidemiology and etiology of cerebral palsy. Throughout the various studies, it has been it is seen that cerebral palsy's prevalence ranges from 1.5 to more than 4 per 1,000 live birth, and incidence is, as I mentioned, higher in preterm babies than the term babies, that is 7 months, or the term babies are on 9 months. And the prevalence are more seen in male child than comparative to girl child. Most of the children identified with cerebral palsy are of spastic cerebral palsy type, which has a percentage of 77.4%. And to be mentioning that children who are diagnosed with cerebral palsy can walk. 58.2 children can walk by their self, and 11.3 children may use a handheld devices, mobility devices to walk. It can be tripod, cane, crutches, rollator. Anything can be used depending upon his severity of condition. And it has also been seen that mostly children with cerebral palsy has a co-occurring condition. Co-occurring condition means that the child has one or more conditions associated with cerebral palsy. In many cases, it has been seen that epilepsies are more associated with children with cerebral palsy. And there are other conditions such as MR is also seen. MR stands for mental retardation. Fortunately, with the advancement of medical technology, or would say care, the incidence of cerebral palsy in some children has decreased. Now we are going to discuss what causes cerebral palsy. What are the etiology of cerebral palsy? So cerebral palsy can be caused by a brain injury or problem that can occur during any of the following period. It can be in the prenatal period, perinatal period, and postnatal period, or within the first 2-3 years of a child's life. We will discuss about what are the prenatal periods, perinatal period, and postnatal period. In many cases, the exact cause of cerebral palsy is not known. So what are the prenatal period of a cerebral palsy? Prenatal period usually stands from conception until settling in of labor pain. It starts from the conception of the pregnancy to the starting of the labor pains. And now we'll discuss what are the prenatal period. It starts shortly before the birth of a baby up to 1 month after the birth. And postnatal periods, it usually starts from the birth of the baby and lasts for the 2 years of the baby. Children can, wait a minute. Let me go back. Children can develop cerebral palsy in any of the following period. What are the causes which causes cerebral palsy? We will discuss. As I have mentioned, there is in some cases the cause is also unknown. There are some risk factors which predispose the child to develop cerebral palsy. So first we will discuss about the prenatal risk factors. Prenatal risk factors, it could be prematurity, the baby is preterm, low birth weight babies, and the reason could be that the mother nutritional status is compromised, maternal epilepsy, history of maternal hyperthyroidism, infections such as TORCH, which may include cytomegalovirus infection, herpes infections, and etc. Eclampsia, high BP, drug abuse, trauma, multiple pregnancy is one of the known cause of developing babies with cerebral palsy. Placental insufficiency, smoking or drinking during pregnancy by the mother can lead to develop cerebral palsy in the child. And another cause is folic acid deficiency, which can lead to children to have susceptible, make children to have cerebral palsy. And now we will discuss about the perinatal risk factors. Perinatal risk factors, these could develop, as I've mentioned, in the time before the birth of the baby and last up to 1 month. Prenatal risk factors are premature rupture of the placental membrane, prolonged and difficult labor, vaginal bleeding at the time of admission for the labor, bradycardia, forceps application delivery. It can damage to the fetal head while delivering the child. Asphyxia due to a mechanical respiratory obstruction. Asphyxia, it is is also a known cause of developing cerebral palsy during the birth of the baby. A breech presentation of the baby when baby is delivering from their through their legs out. Anoxia due to various problems like umbilical cord around the neck of baby. It is also seen in many times that the umbilical cord stuck around the baby's neck. Now we are going to discuss about postnatal risk factors. It can be CNS infection, hypoxia, seizures, coagulopathies, hyperbilirubinemia, head trauma, and hydrocephalus. All these factors predispose for the development of cerebral palsy. Before we going for further slides, let me introduce you the classification system which is used worldwide to diagnose the level of children with cerebral palsy. These are gross motor function classification system. This is the system. This is a system developed for children with cerebral palsy and published in 1997 and expanded in 2007. Usually in the system, there are levels for 5 different age groups: before 2 years, between 2 and 4 years of child, between 4 and 6 years, between 6 and 12, and between 12 and 18 years. Okay, let me show you the classification system. Here I'm showing you the gross motor function classification system of children with age group 6 and 12. It has 5 levels I have mentioned: level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, and level 5. These classification systems are used by professionals to diagnose the level of the cerebral palsy child, and it helps in further management of his condition depending upon his level. As you can see, there is level 1. The children with level 1 of gross motor function classification system can walk independently. In basically, they categorize the child in 3 settings. First is indoor setting, outdoor setting, and in the community setting. Indoor stands for the child can walk or move around their house and use their activities of daily living by their own in indoor setting. Outdoor setting usually stand for the kids in their school and basically in the school time. And community setting is like the child can able to walk in the society, parks, and using transportation by their own. So we'll go back and discuss about the level 1. The children with level 1 walk at home, school, outdoors, and in the community. They can climb up stairs. They can use. They can perform gross motor skill. Gross motor skills are such as jumping, running, catching and throwing a ball. But with the level 1 children, the speed and balance of the child is to a limited extent. And in the level 2 of cerebral palsy child, the child uses a handrail support to walk on the stairs and climb. For longer distances, he or she may need a mobility device in handheld to walk around. And they may have minimal ability to perform their gross motor skills, such as running and jumping. The child with gross motor level 3 usually have a handheld device, mobility device, and in most of the indoor setting, indoor in the house, like they may use a cane or a walker to go to the washroom and do their basic aerials. They require a support for this. Children walk on the wheelchair mobility when traveling to long distances. The children with the gross motor function classification system level 4 usually are guided, or we can say they require a shadow teacher or parenting in their school. They require assistance for in their outdoor setting as well. And they use a wheelchair or mobility device for their functional ability. And lastly, the children with the level 5 are usually bound to wheelchair or use usually use wheelchair for propelling their mobility. And now we are going to discuss about the classification of cerebral palsy. It's broadly classified in 3 categories. That is based on motor function, based on severity, and based on topographical distribution. Just give me a second. So classification based upon motor function. Based on motor function, the cerebral palsy is broadly classified in 2 categories. One is spastic cerebral palsy and other is non-spastic cerebral palsy. As I have mentioned earlier also, spastic cerebral palsy is commonly seen and mostly seen with a percentage of 70 to 80% of children having spastic cerebral palsy. The injury of the brain occurs in the pyramidal tract, and it's referred to as upper motor neuron damage. It usually affects the motor area of the brain. Another category is non-spastic cerebral palsy, which is non-spastic cerebral palsy. It exhibit I have to mention once, cerebral palsy may basically there is high increase in the muscle tone. And in non-spastic cerebral palsy, there is fluctuation of muscle tone. It is further divided into 2 groups, ataxic and dyskinetic. Together, they make 20% of cerebral palsy cases. And broken down, 50% stand for dyskinetic cerebral palsy and 5% for ataxic CP. Next, we're going to see classification based on their severity. Based on severity, cerebral palsy is categorized in 3 categories, that is mild cerebral palsy, moderate cerebral palsy, and severe cerebral palsy. Mild cerebral palsy means a child can move without assistance and do his or her daily activities. For example, he can do his toilet training by himself, brushing, combing, feeding activities he can perform by himself, and or may require least assistance for this activities. Now we are going to discuss about moderate cerebral palsy. Moderate cerebral palsy means a child needs braces, medication, and adaptive technology to accomplish his daily activities. They may need braces such as AFOs or knee gaiters, night screens to combat their difficulties or deformities. That come under moderate cerebral palsy. And severe cerebral palsy means the child will require a wheelchair and will have significant challenges in accomplish their activities and need more support. Severe cerebral palsy child requires assistance for their most of the activity, be it ADLs and other activities of living. Now we are going to discuss about classification based on their topographical distribution. That means depending upon the area of the body affected. They are broadly classified in the following terms: monoplegia, hemiplegia, diplegia, paraplegia, quadriplegia, and triplegia. We will discuss it one by one. A monoplegia, as the name suggests, it is monoplegia in the only one limb of the body is affected. It can be your arms, it can be his arms or legs. Hemiplegia, that is, stands for one side of the body is affected. Diplegia, involvement of 4 limbs with legs affected more than the arms. That means the child has affected 4 of his limb, but legs are more affected as compared to the arms. Paraplegia, that is involvement of both legs. Quadriplegia, all the 4 limbs of the body are affected, both upper limbs and both the lower limbs. Triplegia, involvement of 3 limbs. Double hemiplegia is the same as diplegia, but the involvement of limbs with arms are more affected than the legs. Here I'm sharing you an image of 4 of the classified conditions. Monoplegia, as you can see, only one part of the body is affected. Hemiplegia, half of the body is affected. It can be right or left depending upon the damage to the brain. Diplegia, both legs are affected. Quadriplegia, limbs, and it involves trunks as well. Here, the image I'm showing you represents the area of the damage affected in different type of cerebral palsy. We will discuss about the type of cerebral palsy in further slides. This image showing the spastic cerebral palsy and the motor area damage is the cortex area of the brain, which control movements. And in ataxic cerebral palsy, the damage area is in the cerebellum. Cerebellum, as we all know, that cerebellum stands for the balance and coordination of the body. And in dyskinetic cerebral palsy, the damage area is in the basal ganglia of the brain. And children also exhibit mixed kind of features with cerebral palsy that comes under mixed type of cerebral palsy. They may have spastic as well as fluctuating tone present in the body. And now I'm showing you slides for the different type of cerebral palsy. We are basically going to talk about spastic, ataxic, and dyskinetic cerebral palsy. Here, spastic cerebral palsy, as we have mentioned, most commonly seen cerebral palsy, 80 to 90% children have spastic kind of pattern. What are the common features seen in children with spastic cerebral palsy? They can have hemiplegic pattern, diplegic, and quadriplegic pattern. Usually, the posture and movements are affected. There is increased muscle tone in the muscles. And hyperreflexia is seen in these children with spastic cerebral palsy. Occasionally, they might have clonus present. In this slide, I'm showing you the posture usually present in the children with cerebral palsy. They exhibit a backward arching kind of posture. The posture usually can be elicited by their emotional excitement, outburst, or may they develop when they develop fear. They may develop fear. They develop increased tone in their extensor group of muscles and exhibit this posture, which result in backward arching of the body. We are here. The slide is showing you about the hemiplegic pattern of CP, paraplegic pattern, and quadriplegic pattern of the cerebral palsy. This is the one of the most commonest, I could say, feature seen in cerebral palsy is the scissoring. And the children who exhibit this gait are called having a scissoring gait, as we have discussed and we know it in the gait patterns. Scissoring is happen when we try to stand a child, they'll try to cross their legs as shown in the image. And it is commonly seen featured in spastic cerebral palsy. Other next type is dyskinetic cerebral palsy, and it's account for 10 to 15% of all cases of cerebral palsy. What is the most common cause is found to have dyskinetic CP is hyperbilirubinemia or severe anoxia. And as we have discussed, the damage is in the basal ganglia of the brain. So the outcome of features seen are related to involuntary movement are seen in the children with dyskinetic pattern. Here is the image showing the child. They may have poor balance, involuntary arm and hand movements present in children with dyskinetic cerebral palsy. Here I'm going to talk about few symptoms seen in children with dyskinetic cerebral palsy. They may have abnormal pattern of posture and movement. Involuntary and uncontrolled movements are seen in children with dyskinetic. They may have dysarthria, that stands for slurring of speech, slow speech, delay speech. Dysphagia, they may have feeding difficulties, swallowing difficulties of food, and drooling. Mostly children who have fluctuating tone are having the symptom of drooling, and they are dealt with the oromotor therapist. We will discuss about the rehab team in further slides. And children with dyskinetic cerebral palsy usually have a normal to below IQ. Intellectual development is generally normal in children with dyskinetic CP. They may also have hearing dysfunction. Now we're going to discuss about the ataxic CP, another type of cerebral palsy commonly seen. As we have mentioned, the damage in ataxic CP is in the cerebellum area of the brain, which account for our balance and coordination. So here I discuss about few facts. Ataxia, it is the loss of balance, coordination, and fine motor control. Ataxic children cannot coordinate their movement. Muscle tone are usually normal in ataxic cerebral palsy and becomes apparent towards the age 2 to 3 years. Children who has ataxic CP, they use a wide base of support pattern to walk. Reason is that their balance area of the brain is affected. So they try to balance their center of gravity by increasing their base of support while walking. And children with ataxic CP may have intentional tremor or they have intentional tremors, that is dyssymetria. Dexterity and fine motor control is very poor seen in children with ataxic CP, and that is the reason they have faced many difficulties in their fine motor activities such as writing skill, fastening their zippers or buttoning their t-shirts. It's adversely affected in children with ataxic cerebral palsy. Mostly children can walk by their own, but they need supports through some walkers for their longer distances. Here I'm showing you an image which showing that the child may use a wide base of support during walking. To keep her balance, a child with ataxia walks bent forward with feet apart. She takes regular steps like a sailor or a rough sea or someone who is drunken. And another more feature seen in children in ataxic, they may process overshooting and undershooting. That is because of lack of coordination and balance, they find it difficult to judge the distance and accurate speed to perform the activity or a task. For example, they may find difficult to pick up the glass and drink a glass of water because of their balance dysfunction. Here I'm going to discuss about what are all other problems associated with cerebral palsy. As we have mentioned, cerebral palsy is not just an umbrella term or diagnosis, but children and adults present with multiple problems. The other problem associated with cerebral palsy is intellectual disability. Seizures are mostly commonly seen. Vision issues, they may possess vision issues and hearing problem as well. Now let's come how the diagnosis of cerebral palsy can be made. Usually it's required a complete physical examination, medical history. But initially what has seen that the parents are the first who discover that the child is having CP by knowing the fact that the child is not developing like the other children of the same age group. For example, they may not controlling their neck by the age of 3 months, which is the post age to develop a healthy neck control in a healthy child. They may seem that they have scissoring pattern while lying in the bed. These are the some kind of markers which trigger the parents to consult a doctor. So initially they'll first went to the pediatrician for for observing what are the difficulties the child is facing. And firstly, the pediatrician is who discover all the diagnosis, like who go for the complete medical history of the child and physical examination, and importantly, the developmental milestone checklist of the child for the child. And history taking helps a lot for the diagnosis of cerebral palsy. After doing all the examination, physical or complete medical history from the parents, the pediatrician may refer or refers the child to the specialty. In many cases, it is pediatric neurologist. Next slide, I'll show you the team involved for the management of cerebral palsy. Here I'm showing you the team member involved in the management of cerebral palsy. And cerebral palsy is a condition which has associated condition as well. So there is no one specialty who can treat the management of cerebral palsy. It required teamwork and work of other specialty as well. So for the management, a pediatric neurologist is the primemost who dealt with the condition of CP and associated condition of cerebral palsy such as epilepsy and all, and pediatric physical medicine and rehabilitation team, developmental pediatrician who plays important role in the management of CP. He takes account of his nutritional status as well as and developmental milestone. Again, physiotherapist plays a major important role in the treatment of cerebral palsy. And other rehab team members are occupational therapist, speech and language therapist, pediatric orthotist, and ophthalmologist. I'm going to discuss in little detail about all of them in further slides. With the current scenario, there are also alternative treatment approaches for managing cerebral palsy. These can be done like acupuncture are using for treating muscle tone issues, spasticity management, aquatic therapy. It plays a very important role in managing the increased muscle tone and also help in strengthening the muscle of the body. Stem cell therapies are widely nowadays are using. And another is botulinum toxin injection. Botulinum toxin injection are used to treat spasticity in specific muscle group that could be firstly dealt by a team who diagnose in which muscle group there is spasticity present, and they will administer the botulinum toxin injection in the concerned muscle area. And after that, it requires a good physiotherapy management of the child when we introduce botulinum toxin injection. Here, as I mentioned, aquatic therapy, botulinum toxin, stem cell therapy, and acupuncture are nowadays being used for treating cerebral palsy child. And here I'm going, the children's also put on some medication support. And how medications help, I will discuss it. It helps in controlling issues related to their movement problems, helps to control other conditions associated with the disease, such as epilepsy, any feeding, drooling issues, and other feeding difficulties. Medications are always prescribed by a specialty, depending upon the type and severity of the condition. The following medications are used for the following conditions. These are spasticities, seizures, incontinence, involuntary movement, respiratory issues, tremors, and acid reflux. And I'm going to discuss about the physiotherapy management of cerebral palsy child. And it usually focuses on improving the independence and helping the child to improve their ADL's activity. As we have mentioned that cerebral palsy is a disorder which cannot be cured. We can help the kid to attain their activities of daily living and improve his social participation, and helps to cover the disability. And the prime focus of physiotherapy is balance, on the balance training, flexibility of the muscle group, mobility of the child, postures correction, and strength training. As we are dealing with the children in cerebral palsy, so we cannot have a plan like we deal with the adult treatment of physiotherapy. It's like we have to be more cooperative. We need to be more concerned about the child treatment and child cooperation. To gain child cooperation during exercises, we must like earn faith from the child. Play as always associated with the play are also introduced in the therapy session to gain confidence of the child. As always we do with the exercises, they are introduced gradually, and repetition must be dependent upon the condition of the children and how he can take the exercises plan. Always provide a rest period to the children while performing exercises. There are various approaches used by physiotherapists to deal with the problem of spasticity or breaking the reflex pattern in the children. So they are progressive movement pattern, synergistic movement pattern approach by Bernstrom, proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation by Herman Kabata and Margaret Knott, and neurodevelopmental therapy by Bertha Bobar, which focuses on the inhibition of reflexes. And there's another approach, sensory stimulation for activation and inhibition of reflexes. Here I'm going to tell you about the conventional strength training plan, which we generally use in the children with cerebral palsy. These are range of motion exercises. I have mentioned about all of the joints, but being a therapist, we have to analyze which muscle group or joint need the more range according to the child need. Strengthening exercises, again, depending upon the child condition. For that, we need to a thorough examination of the muscles group, which are on the weaker side, which are on the tighter side, and then accordingly plan a treatment plan to administer exercises. Here are images showing strengthening exercises for the kids. When we deal with the cerebral palsy, the static and dynamic posture are very important to focus on because they have limitation in their joints. So sitting postures are encouraged, and postures of on-4 position, that we call it 4-point kneeling, and kneeling positions and other positions who provide weight bearing to the child. In this slide, I'm going to show you some postures. For example, in the first one, the lady is carrying a child with his legs apart. This posture helps to cover the adductor spasticity in the children. And in the next one, the child is on a kneeling position. This position will help the child to balance, like more work on his pelvis stability and allow him to do the activity. This is here the child is doing an on-4 position, and this is the most important one when we administer exercise to the kids. This provide weight bearing to the child. Another image, the therapist is supporting a child from his pelvis. to accomplish standing. These are the two postures which we strictly avoid in the cerebral palsy or in any children. These are the W sitting postures. It's strictly avoided in the children with cerebral palsy. And another children here is showing using a wrong posture. These kind of postures should be avoided. I'll show you the next image where we can manage the posture. For example, in this image, we can see the child is sitting in a round back positions and with the legs inwards. So we can use a prone wedge kind of thing and provide a pommel inside his leg to cover his postural requirement. Again, the same ages, we provide aids according to the child need to have a balanced and correct posture of sitting. Swiss ball exercises are usually administered to develop your core strength and improve their stability as well. They can be used in a number of ways in children. Other exercises are balance exercises, balance board exercises, we known as balance board exercises. Here I'm administering, here I'm giving a child balance beam exercises. We are using so many toys and props when we are dealing with the children, as they are not as cooperative than the adult patient we have seen in adult physiotherapy management. So we need to be a little more playful with the kids. Gait training on treadmills are widely used and mostly used with children who have walking difficulties. Anything we can add in the activity based, it's like we can give a child to ball to put in the container, and mostly we can make the exercises more playful for the child. Again, other equipment can be used for training the children's core strength. We can use hammock swing, lycra swing, and hanging bar. Here I'm using hanging bar activities. It can help the children to develop their shoulder strength as well as improve his finger grips and improve his strength. Here, the next I'm showing you the images of swings used by different kind of swing used for treating. Occupational therapist, as I've told you, we have discussed about other rehab team. So one of the important member of the rehab team is occupational therapist, who help the child with achieving his activities of daily living skills, such as brushing hairs, brushing their teeth, fastening zippers, and another fine motor activities for requiring for writing, scissor cutting activities. Next, I'm going to show you. These are the various tools used by occupational therapists to accomplish the activity. For example, there's a fork. We can use a fork with the band in children who have difficulty with the feeding issues. And here are the form of some grips which can be used to accomplish writing tasks. Another member of the team is speech therapist. Speech therapists help the child to communicate, improve their oromotor skills and feeding issues. If the child has swallowing difficulty, chewing issues, they are all dealt by the speech therapist. There are various tools used by speech therapists to accomplish these goals. As I'm showing you in the image, these are the tube of different grades. They have different level of grading depending upon the child condition. We can use it, be it red, blue, and they have different level of strength to achieve. And here's the child is using a Z-Bite equipment. These are used to develop oral motor control. And another member of the team is orthotist and a very important member of the rehab team for cerebral palsy child. They made equipments according to the child need to help him to have a correct posture and to decrease their pain and prevent development of deformities. Usually, the child with cerebral palsy have different kind of deformities. As the term cerebral palsy is a big term, we cannot discuss it all in this webinar. We can have like another webinar for this for deformities of children. Here I'm showing you some of the orthotics used by the children used by cerebral palsy children. Here the child is using ankle foot orthosis. The next frame is showing the children with elbow crutches. Here's the child on the standing frame using to have a correct standing posture. And this child is using a rollator walking in. And lastly and importantly, special education. Special educators are now being widely like it's very much promoted by the government for the children of special need in the schools. They have like make mandatory for the school to have special educators for the children with special needs, as the children with cerebral palsy may have intellectual disability along with the a slow speed of writing or may have difficult writing. So these special educators help the child for their so many issues. For example, they help children with disability that need assistance, help in creating an individualized educational plan for the child, and they plan according to the child condition, what are the aids should be given to the child for their writing skills, and give personalized attention. That is more important for the children who have special needs, and helps in their emotional counseling as they may have emotional issues as well. And these are very important for the treatment management in the cerebral palsy. So I think we have done with the today's webinar. Thank you so much for listening the webinar. It's all about today's webinar on cerebral palsy and its management.
Thank you, Dr. Anita. If anyone have any query about this, anything, please do a message on chat, or you can also message your query in the group. The participants will get their certificates link and certificates in the group also. So do you have any query?
If you guys have any query, you can put that in the chat box, or you can text your query in the group meant for this webinar. We will deal it later. Ma'am, I think I don't have a query right now in my chat box. So
Yeah.
So can we end with the today webinar?
Yes. So thank you so much for listening us.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being a good audience. Thank you.